Hey, welcome back. Today I'm going to run you through a little routine that's going to be more so structured for those of you who have textured skin. If you're someone who has acne scarring in general, dermatitis, eczema, dryness, any raised area of concern on the skin, these are going to be products that I not only use on myself when I'm having an eczema flare up and I have a lot of dryness going on, but also clients who have textured skin. I use very similar products, if not the same products. So it's going to be a pretty quick routine. A portion of the video is sponsored by Terry. I've been using their Hyaluronic Hydra powder in my professional kit for years, and they just released the Hyaluronic Hydra Tinted powder. So they now come in tints. If you could suspend air into a powder formula, that is exactly what this powder is. It is the most lightweight powder formula I have ever come across, and so it is just phenomenal for texture skin. It does not pick up on any type of texture. And now that they have a tinted version, it just adds a little bit of an extra blur to the skin. So let's go ahead and get into it. If you do have porous texture, meaning enlarged pores, I do have a Pores 101 video where I talk about primers you can use for that. My texture is a dry texture. So I have dryness all on my eyelids right now. I have dryness spanning across the lower portion of my face and my chin. So the way I have to correct that is with hydration. So I'm going to use a little bit of my moisturizer. Currently, I've been using the Henriksen Truth C-Rush Brightening gel cream. It's a really good lightweight prep moisturizer for underneath makeup. It kind of smooths out that dryness for me. And although I don't have flake dryness going on right now, trust me, it's a reoccurring thing. It just kind of, it pops up, goes away, comes back, and it's just kind of like an endless cycle. But I do have texture that isn't necessarily like visible on camera, but if you were to run your finger across, my face, you would definitely be feeling it, honey. So for textured skin, I always, regardless of the coverage level that the person needs, I use something that is more of like a skin tint, a tinted moisturizer. These are really forgiving on the skin and they tend to not crepe and crease into texture. So the one I'm going to be using today is a newer one that I discovered a couple of months ago, and it has been such a dream for my eczema recently. It's the only thing I've been wanting to wear. It's the Hourglass Hyaluronic Skin Tint, Illusion Skin Tint. Mine is in the shade Warm Ivory. It is just so incredibly invisible on the skin. It does not pick up on my dry patches. It kind of gives me that your skin but better look. A really good dupe for this I wanted to go ahead and include is the Neutrogena Hydra Boost Hydrating Skin Tint. Very, very similar formulas. I do think the Hourglass one has a better color range, obviously, but it's just the one that I've been reaching for lately. And I'm applying that with my tried and true Smashbox foundation brush. A lot of you have been asking about this in videos recently, why I haven't been using it, and that's because a lot of you all have said you've not been able to find it or get your hands on it. But it's my clean brush of choice today, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and use. So some of you might be asking, why would you use a skin tint or a tinted moisturizer as opposed to a regular foundation, like a medium full coverage? The reason is because tinted moisturizers and skin tints tend to have a higher percentage of water in them as opposed to pigment. If you're using something that has a lot of pigment in it, at the end of the day, when you have texture to your skin, let's say a dry patch, and you notice that dry patch to really be showing and really be noticeable, that's because the pigment is getting caught in those textured areas, and it's really bringing out the areas that essentially you don't want to be brought out. So by using something that has a little bit less pigment to it, it's not going to adhere that way to the skin, and it's not going to obviously accentuate those areas. Okay, we all know I enjoy a good stick formula concealer, a good pot concealer that's got a good amount of coverage to it. However, when my skin is more textured or I'm doing makeup on someone who might have more textured skin, I tend to lean more towards a liquid concealer, something that is a little bit more flexible in texture and a little bit more lightweight in texture. So a good example for this is Charlotte Tilbury's Retoucher Concealer. I also have the bareMinerals Bare Skin Serum Concealer, something that is a little bit more wet in texture, something that is just ultimately thinner. Is really going to work best, in my opinion, with a textured skin type. Again, you don't really want to go for a concealer that just has an outrageously large amount of pigment in it, because it's going to work in the same way that a foundation would. So this is kind of like a medium coverage concealer. It's fine to spot conceal with. It's fine to highlight the under eye area with. I'm actually just going to take, again, a little bit on the back of my hand and work with it that way. My eye area right now is absolutely insanely dry. Actually, I'll probably do a little zoom in so you can see just the dry patches that are running through my eye right now. So I'm really delicately going to apply this with my finger so I don't disrupt the dryness and kind of make ultimately my skin look even more flaky than what it is. This is also a really good way to apply your concealer if you have fine lines and wrinkles, really lightly layering and delicately tapping, as opposed to, you know, the triangular method. And obviously, if you need to spot conceal blemishes, I've got a few going on right here. You can do the same thing with your finger. Fingers are our greatest tool. I'm gonna add a touch more coverage to these little bumps up here. And again, I have a lot of dryness and texture on my chin right now that isn't quite as flaky and visible, so I want to be really careful with layering products there. So again, I'm lightly going to tap just the slightest amount of concealer there to hide a bit of extra redness. I just popped a little bit of Glossier's Clear Lip Gloss on because my lips were not looking attractive at all. I want to talk about using darker foundations as your bronzer. So since we skipped on coverage with that skin tint or tinted moisturizer, a way you can slightly add coverage back into the skin is by using a darker foundation as your actual bronzer. The difference in a formula like this and using something like the Milk Makeup bronzing stick is that this was designed for a complexion product, so it does have more pigment in it. The Milk Makeup, definitely a sheer, very, very sheer amount of pigment compared to something like this. So even though you're using it to bronze the skin, it will actually give you a slight amount of coverage compared to using, again, a stick bronzer, something that was just designed to be a little bit more on the sheer side. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm using the L'Oreal, this is the Shape Stick foundation, and it's in the shade Tan. So again, getting a bit more coverage, but I'm not adding it to the entire face where it can accentuate every piece of texture in my skin. And truthfully, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't that long ago that I figured this out. I just happened to be using this exact product and I was like, you know what? This really does add a bit of extra coverage to my skin, a little bit more of that polished look. And, you know, since I am the type of person that will generally go for a lighter coverage base product, this is just a nice way to add a subtle bit of extra coverage. I don't know if you can pick up on that right there, but it is actually covering my freckles a bit. So a big no-no for me, especially when doing makeup on people with textured skin, is using a powder highlighter. Just haven't found one that gives me the smooth enough finish that something of a cream or liquid formula would give. So this is one that I've actually been using for years. It's actually more of a blush product, but it's multi-purpose. It literally has multi in the name, and it's NARS multi, or what are these called? The NARS multiples. Yeah, NARS multiples. This color is in South Beach. Gonna use this as my highlighter and my blush combo today. So by kind of eliminating 2 steps, again, we're not layering a ton of product on the skin. This is a very lightweight cream formula, and I do find these to be pretty long lasting. And since they do have a bit of glow to them, there you go. You've got a bit of highlighter going on here, but it's not the powder texture that you kind of know from, let's say, like a Becca powder highlighter. That's really going to pick up on pores or any type of dryness or raised area in the skin. Finally, time to set things. This is where you can really control how matte you want to be and how dewy you want to be. I always recommend using a loose powder. It's just something that is a little bit more forgiving on the skin. It's something that you can generally reapply throughout the day, and it's not going to cake up like a pressed powder would. So again, I'm going to use the By Terry Hyaluronic Hydra powder. This is in the shade Fair. I would definitely recommend this shade if you are, even if you're in like the light medium range. If you are even lighter than me, like the fairest of the fair, you might just want to go with the translucent version. But I've just got a little bit in the cap here. A little goes a long way. I'm just going to take my little targeted application brush and I'm going to press this into the skin. And now this powder does not have an overwhelmingly large amount of pigment to where it's going to alter the color of your foundation or alter just your makeup in general, but I think that the color, like the bit of color that it does have, just adds that extra amount of blur to the skin. Let me zoom you in so you can see this in action. Okay, I turned my lighting down too, just so you could kind of pick up on my skin a bit better. So I've applied a little bit to my under eye area, a little bit to my forehead. Now I'm going to take a bit around where my smile lines are. And it's just so freaking invisible. Like, I don't know, I can't get over it. So my chin is where I have a lot of texture going on right now. Again, I'm going to take the faintest amount and just kind of press. So this is it. I just put actually that same cheek color on my eyes and a little bit on my lips, and that's how I completed the look. I just love products like this. I love working with, honestly, I love working with textured skin because it gives me an opportunity to really play around and figure out what works and what doesn't. And these products just always work, not only for me, but when I am doing makeup for other people. The Hyaluronic Hydra powder, I mean, truthfully, it is so stunning. It feels like absolutely nothing. You can reapply this 100 times throughout the day and it's not going to pick up on anything. It's not going to layer on the skin and look heavy. I just ultimately think it is such a beautifully and well-made powder. But when you feel of it, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about when I say it's air in powder form. It's almost like it melts or dissolves into nothing. And so that's why I think it is so phenomenal for textured skin. You can reapply it 100 times throughout the day. It's not going to pick up on anything. It's not going to layer in an unflattering manner. And I just think that, again, I've been using it in my kit for years. It's phenomenal. The translucent formula, just as good. But I will say this tint, it adds this extra blur to my face. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions about the products, anything that you may need to sub for, leave them in the comments down below, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.